Okay, so it's going to be 8, well, actually 8:10. So I have to start with the class. I don't know if you're going to be able to join, um, well, Gina, but I have to start also today, which is supposed to be the last class for A7. We're supposed to practice. And again, if you get to join the class, we're going to do it. If not, I'm going to directly assign everything for the next course. All right, I'm going to give a short introduction about it, and I start covering the contents for that course. All right. And but again, actually, I wanted to verify something. I want to see that the microphone is not with any echo or anything like that, because sometimes it has some problems. All right, so let me check, please. Good. It seems that it is okay. Now again, it's 8:10 now. We have to start. Okay. So once again, today it was going to be the last day to practice, but as you're not here, I already covered and reviewed the main details. I cannot do it once again because it's not going to make sense, right? The idea of doing that is with you asking me the questions and making you practice it with some details, but that part was already recorded, so you can watch it and practice with that. Now we need some interaction, but again, as we don't have that interaction, we have to start with the next unit. Once again, the elements that you have to take into account, I'm not going to review them once again, I'm just going to mention them. For unit 1, the simple present, the present continuous, suggestions, to and enough. That has to be clear for you. Then for unit 2, right, that we reviewed this on Monday, so we have to pay attention to the present perfect, that is the indefinite past, models of advice, and also future with will and be going to. That's unit 2. For unit 3, we have to go with these 3 elements, the present perfect and simple past, like the comparison, right, of those 2 tenses. Then models of ability, can, or, be able to, or could. Then possessive pronouns, that's unit 3. And unit 4, right, it was the last one that we got to see, tag questions, adjectives and adverbs, and articles, and the, or the. And that was it. All right. Now we have to start again, even though today we still have time to cover this, I have to start with this one now because I have to use this time. Once again, we have the usual 4 units. I'm going to assign them all, as always, everything except for the final test. I'm going to do it at the end, and also the review quizzes, right? I'm going to do them at the end also because I need to give some details about the time and other things that don't apply to the, well, to the main assignments. Okay, so let's see how much time we got for this. Remember that we have 8 classes. We're supposed to have 3 classes per week. So we are not going to start today. Even though I'm starting today with the assignments and with the contents, we still had today for the last course. So it's going to start on Friday. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So until August the 7th, all right, we got to cover this new unit, August the 7th. So there it is, August the 7th, Monday, 11:59. Those are going to be 8 days to finish with all of that. We have 2 attempts as always, plus models to use and imitate. All right, those were the assignments. Now we got to go with the quizzes. Okay, I'm going here, then here. Always the integrated quizzes, right? 3 quizzes. Okay, So select all, and once again, August the 7th, 11:59 p.m. And in this case, sorry, we got 50 minutes. And finally, the final test. Okay, remember the same, but it is only going to be available starting the last week before that, last weekend actually. Starting, actually, the due date is the same, right? Monday the 7th, but it's not started immediately. It will start on the 5th, no, perhaps a little bit less, because it's the 7th, right? So starting on Thursday, you have all those days until the 7th to finish with this one, and it's going to be available very early morning. Okay, and in that case, we got 60 minutes. All right, so everything is being assigned now, and we're good to go. Again, I'm going to try to cover some extra things now about it. Give me a second. I'm going to start reading important elements for you to take into account for this model and specifically for all the units in the model. Okay, so let's see some details. Again, here, the resources are important elements to take into account. So let's read them together. These are all the objectives that you got for Unit 1. They are related to listening, speaking, grammar, pronunciation, reading, and writing. We're going to pay attention mainly to the grammar part, what we are going to do, something related to reading, writing, and perhaps even listening. Okay, the main elements. Let's take a look at that. For listening, you're talking about prediction, listening to specific reasons, right, for many ideas about people's beliefs and other advice, right, from recorded messages. Then you have giving orders related to perhaps imperatives, we will see, make requests, and respond to an order or a request. Then you got in grammar, similar to all those ideas, non-action verbs, models of requests, right, can, could, will, would, and so versus such. We're going to use when to use each of them. And again, this is mainly what we are going to cover. Then the rest of it, again, perhaps here in reading, okay, this is important, getting meaning from context and understanding many ideas and details. And you have very specific elements for writing that you will learn in the first unit. Okay, you got the same for all the rest of the units, and it's important that you take all those learning objectives into account so that you know what we're going to be covering. All right, I wanted to show you that too, for you to take that information into account. But again, now that we are in Unit 1, let's pay attention to that one. Again, we are mainly going to take a look at grammar. We have non-action verbs, we have models of request, we have so and such. Okay, so with that said, we're going to start. Let me go to the previous element. All right, so let's begin with non-action verbs or stative verbs. We covered this in a certain way, we talked about it, but here we have to do it in detail. So let's start. So stative verbs describe a state rather than an action. They aren't usually used in, actually they are not used, it's not that they aren't usual, they are not used in present continuous. Okay, so we are not going to say I'm not knowing, she's liking you, he's seeming happy, right? It's not possible. It doesn't exist because it doesn't make sense. Even if you say that in Spanish, it doesn't make sense. If you say that, it sounds weird. It is not possible because, again, to know is not an action, it's a state. And it's perhaps information, some information that you possess, and that's not an action. The same like, right? It's something that you feel. It's not an action, not anything that you do. The same to seem. If you seem something, it describes how you look in a certain way. And again, that's not description of an action. That's just description of a state. And once again, those are stative verbs, and we don't use them with continuous tenses. We use them only in simple tenses. All right, that's why we are just showing that it's incorrect if we use the continuous form. Now, we have categories when we will talk about the stative verbs, the non-action verbs. And these four are the main categories, and we're talking about thoughts and opinions, feelings and emotions, senses and perceptions, possession and measurement. All right, those are essential categories to refer to non-action verbs. In thoughts and opinions, we have agree, believe, doubt, guess, imagine, know, mean, recognize, remember, suspect, think, and understand. All right, all of them are non-action verbs because they don't describe actions. They describe what? States, right? They are general descriptions for something, characteristics of something could be, but not actions. Then in feelings and emotions, we got dislike, hate, like, love, prefer, want, and wish. Okay? Again, these are feelings, emotions. They are not actions. That's why they are stative verbs. So we don't say I'm hating you, I'm liking you, I'm loving you. Sorry. We say I hate you, I like you, I love you, he loves you, he loves it, she likes it, and so on. We use simple tenses, we don't use continuous tenses. Same for senses, perceptions, right? Appear, be, feel, hear, look, see, seem, smell, taste. Those are senses and perceptions. They are not actions. And finally, possession and measurement. Belong, have, measure, own, possess, weight, right? All of them again are referred to a general description about something that is not an action. It's important to take this into account because, again, they cannot be used in continuous, let's say, all right, tenses. But remember that some of them have different meanings. So if the meaning, that's why perhaps the previous idea made sense, because we are talking about possibilities. The idea that some of these words, some of these verbs will have two different meanings at least. And a meaning is related to a stative verb, and the other one is related to a non or an action verb. All right, stative action verbs. So here we say, I feel sick, I was sick, the cake smells good, the cake smelled good. I believe what you said, I will believe whatever you could say. So we're talking about states, ideas that are not actions, but they are descriptions, all right? They are not things that you can do, they are just things that you feel, that you sense, that are a characteristic that you have, a possession that you have. But once again, we have some non-action or stative verbs that can be used as action verbs, all right? Because the meaning is different just because of that. And we're going to see that here, right? Give me a second. Okay, so be can be stative, all right? I'm going to be using this so that everything is clear. Okay. So, stative and action. We covered this again, but we have to do this here in detail. Stative, right? It means that is a state, a description that is not an action. When we say he is immature, we are describing how he is. But again, a good example here, something that is always going to be a state. You can talk about your name or your age, right? I am Luis. I am 32 years old. You are not going to say, I am being Luis, I am being 32, right? That's not possible. So that's a state, that's a characteristic that I got that is stated, right? It cannot be action. But it can be action when the meaning is not that characteristic, when the meaning is something else, in this case, act or behave. When be means acting or behaving, it is action verb. So you can say he is being immature when you say that he's acting like that, he's behaving in that way. Okay, he is not that, he's behaving like that, he's acting like that. So that's when you use be as action. All right, that's very important. Now, going to the next part, we have. Again, we cover this in a certain way. We are reinforcing and seeing this in more detail. Now, we have, you see stative when it means the main thing that it means possession, right? I have a car, he has a dog. It's impossible to say he's having a car or he's having a dog, right? It's not possible. It doesn't work like that. It simply doesn't work like that. So in this case, we always use simple tenses, all right? But when it's action, it's not possession. It is eating, drinking, or experiencing. If the meaning of have is that one, it's possible to use the continuous tense or the continuous tenses that we got in general. So I'm having breakfast, it means I'm eating breakfast because that's an action, to have to eat in this case. And when you say he's having fun, you're saying he's experiencing fun, right? Once again, in those situations, we can use have as action verb because the meaning is different. But when it's possession, we cannot, right? We don't say these two ideas in the continuous form. It is, again, not possible. All right, the next one. All right, so here, C also can be stative or action. right? So it is stative when we're talking about perception, right? Something that we see is something that we perceive. So when we talk about perception or understanding, it is a stative, right? We don't say I'm seeing some birds. No, I see some birds. That's what you perceive. So it's a stative verb. It's non-action verb. If you say I see what you mean, it means I understand what you mean, right? You don't say I'm seeing what you mean or I'm understanding what you mean. No, that's an action. No, that's not an action. That's a state, and it's not describing anything that includes, again, movement itself. So it is, again, all right, in this case, it is a state. But it is action when it means meet or to have a relationship with. For example, if you say, I'll be seeing the doctor tomorrow, it doesn't mean that you will be perceiving with your eyes, right? No, it means that you will be visiting or meeting, right? The doctor. It means to have an encounter, to see that person in the sense of visiting or meeting. All right? That's why here, see, it is possible to use it as action. The same with they've been seeing each other for a month. It means they've been dating. They've been going out in a relationship. That's the meaning. That's why it says to have a relationship with. And that's possible to use with the action tense. All right, so these are the two meanings for stated, and these are the two meanings for action. All right, and here, very similarly, we have stated that it's appearance. As we were mentioning, seem, right? Seem, you seem, or he seems to be okay. We don't say he's seeming, he's looking to be okay. No, he seems to be okay. Appearance. The cake looks delicious. That's the appearance of the cake. We don't say the cake is looking delicious, right? In informal speaking, we say that. It's possible to say that when you are in an informal situation, and again, you are not in a test environment. So the cake looks delicious. That's a state, that's not an action. But it is action when you are directing your eyes to something and with other phrasal verbs that have a certain meaning. The first one is when you direct the action of directing your eyes to something, not perceiving. Of course, you're perceiving, but the idea here is to voluntarily direct your eyes to something. That's why you say he's looking at the computer. You don't say he's looking at the computer. No, he's looking at the computer. And that's once again what? That is continuous, because in this case, you can control something. You see movement. That's an action. You use your eyes voluntarily, not something that you're perceiving because you don't control what you perceive in a certain way. You open your eyes and many things can be perceived over there, right? That's why it's perception. But here, doesn't matter the things you are perceiving. Here, you're paying attention to something that you're looking at directly, and that's important. All right, and as that one, you have other phrasal verbs. They have their specific meaning, and if the meaning, as in most of the cases, is an action, then it is an action verb, right? She's looking for a job. She's seeking a job. She's searching for a job. That's an action. You can see that's movement. It's not a state, right? It's an action. They are looking after or they are taking care of. It's the same. My dog for the weekend. So it is also an action. You can see that action happening. You can say that that's something that includes activity. So it is action, right? Let's go to the next one. All right, so here we see what we can call a smell and taste again in a stative form and in an action form. Once again, we need to understand that when we talk about a state, we're talking about something that is a characteristic, something that is a description, something that is a state, as the name says, right? It is not an action. It is characteristic state. So the characteristic of the bar is that it smells of smoke, right? The bar is not doing any action. That's not an action. You're describing the smell of the bar. The same with this meat. It tastes like chicken. It is not that the meat is doing an action. That's why its taste in that case is not an action. It is a state. But it is different when we use the action meaning. It means to use your senses, all right? One of the five senses that you got to actively do the action of doing something. In this case, he's smelling, it means he's using his nose, that sense, to smell the cookies. So that's an action because he's doing the action of smelling the cookies. Then she's tasting the soup, right, to see if it needs more salt. That's also something that it's related to what? It's related to an action. All right. So that is referred to taste in this case. Now, I'm going to go, I believe that you joined now, Gina. Gina, today we had to cover once again the seventh unit because today we still have, if you have the calendar that management is working with your course, as we only had the two first weeks, that's 6 classes, right? But remember that we have 8 classes per course. So it means that we are missing 2 classes. One class was on Monday, so that was the 7th class, and today is the 8th class. So today is the last class for A7. But I already covered all the contents for A7 and I reviewed that on Monday. Today I wanted to practice with you, but as it was time to start the class, I already started, okay? And well, I started with the next course because I already gave all the information for A7. So now this is the first lesson that is a review, something that we did for the course 8.8. I already assigned also everything, Gina. I mean, the assignments and the quizzes for this new course. But remember that this is officially starting on, let's say, I don't know if it's going to be Thursday or Friday, the class with you, but that day it is going to start. And that's going to be the first day. And with that, you have to count 8 days. And if you count 8 days, you have until August the 7th. Let me close this one a little bit. Over here, so July, and we count, right? One of these is going to be the first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So the 8th class is August the 7th. This is going to be the last day to complete all the new assignments for the new course, plus the 3 quizzes that we have once again, and the final exam. So I wanted to give you that information. I don't know first if you have any questions about that information, Gina. Let me know, please. If not, also let me know if you have any questions about A7. It's important to know if you have questions about A7. If not, I'm going to continue with A8, and we're going to start practicing also with some examples. All right, so do you have any questions about 8.7, the course that we finished? Let me know, please. All right. So if that's the case, again, then let's continue. But before continuing, please, we're still going to use, because again, today we are still in A7. We didn't go to 8.8 now, but this content is from 8.8. but we're going to practice in our previous document, that is this one, okay? Because it's really important to practice. So I'm sharing the link now. And Gina, it's the same link that we used, all right, in the course. It is in the chat now, all right? So let's go to that document. And it's important to now start practicing with the first elements that I covered so far. So if you remember, we have covered this already, Gina. We are going to write examples with this information, okay? And you have to let me know if you have questions, because you need to write examples with this now. So with B, we have the stative form and the action form, okay? I was covering this. Remember that a stative form is something that is a state and a condition, a characteristic. It's not an action. But the action meaning, it means act or behave, and this is temporary. In have, the same. You have the action, the stative first meaning, that is a state when it's possession. It cannot be used in continuous tenses. But you have the action form that means eating, drinking, or experiencing. And in that case, we can use, right, the action form. So let's begin with these four, please, Gina. Let's go to the document that is in the chat, and we have to write four examples. One example of be stative, of be, and the other one of be action. So first one, be stative. Second one, be action. The third one have stative, and the fourth one have action. All right, so we need four examples in total, one of each type, to see if this part is clear in a certain way. If you have questions about that logic, please let me know, Gina. All right, if not, we are going to have at least 4 minutes or perhaps a little bit less to cover those four examples. All right, let me know, please, Gina. If you have questions, let me know. If not, again, let's go to work on those examples, please.
Teacher, ¿será que me puede pasar el link para lo de la página para estudiar?
Yes, Gina, it's in the chat. The link is in the chat, in the Zoom chat. All right, so I'm counting the 4 minutes. If you finish before, also let me know. All right, we're 3 minutes already here. I believe that you left. I'm going to see what you were working on. And according to that, I'm going to try to give feedback. And if you get back, I give you that feedback over there. But I believe that, no, that's weird. Let me see. Yes, the chat is over here. I see the access to this one. Let me verify. Okay, so yes, it was the chat for this one. Again, I don't know what happened, but again, I have to continue, all right? Let's go back to the lesson, and we were working up to this part. I wanted to practice this with you, but again, perhaps later on, you are going to be practicing that. Let's continue with this, right? We were talking about smell and taste. We finished with that, actually. So we are in state and feel, right? Or sorry, think and feel. Let's write it, sorry. Okay, so stative and action, right? So when they mean stative, they are related to an opinion. I think that that's a great idea. I feel that this is not the best use of our time. So in the two cases, we are talking about opinion. That's not an action, all right? That's only opinion. And when remember, one of the categories is related to opinion. When it is that, once again, it is not action. So that's why, sorry, it is action. It is not an action. Yeah, sorry, it is an action. It is a state, all right? It is a state. It's not an action. It is a state because we are describing something rather than, again, indicating something that is happening. So once again, when they need and the meaning is opinion, they are stative verbs. Think, feel. But when the meaning is the usage of the mind, the active usage of the mind, or experiencing emotions or health issues, it is action. So we say we are thinking, right, about moving to another city, or we are considering, right, moving to another city. So thinking, considering in this case is the same. You are using your mind to think about it. And we say, wait, I am thinking. You don't see that directly, but it is an action that the person is doing. All right, it is an action that the person is doing, and it's very important to take that into account. Then you have a feel, again, experiencing emotions or health. I've been feeling unusually tired lately. If you're describing that sensation, but if it's related to this is kind of breaking the rule, but it is valid when you talk about feel. All right, I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling very sick. You're describing something that you're feeling. In that case, usually feelings and senses, perception, right? They are stative forms. But in this case, again, this is one exception. And finally, we got this, right? And this is weight and measure. And if we understood the idea of smell and taste, then we also understand this. If we describe the quality, if we describe a characteristic related to this thing that we are describing, it is stative, right? Because it is not an action, it is a state. So the suitcase weighs 20 pounds. That's the quality, the characteristic that the suitcase possesses. It is not an action that it is doing, right? The suitcase is not doing anything. It's just, once again, a description that it has. And the same for the second one. The surfboard measures 2 meters by 55 centimeters. Again, that being the case, indicates that that's quality, that's description, and that's not activity or action. But it is action when we're talking about a person using a tool to weigh or to measure something. So the butcher is weighing the meat on the scale. The butcher is using a tool to do the action of weighing the meat. Okay, so here the action is doing, sorry, the butcher is doing an action. The subject is doing that action. But also the architects were measuring the distance between the pillars. They actively are doing the action, sorry, of measuring the pillars. All right, that's very, very important once again. Because if you recognize the difference between the suitcase weights, the surfboard measures, and the butcher is weighing, and the architects were measuring, the first ones are related to descriptions and characteristics, and the last two are related to the action that those people are doing. All right? And that's it. Look, this is the first lesson. This is the only one I'm going to cover now because, again, we were supposed to start on either tomorrow or Friday. But once again, um, uh, well, you were in the class just for a second or well, for some minutes. I don't know what happened, but it is really important to be in the whole class. That's going to be essential to work the lessons and everything, because again, the platform is not going to ensure anything. Remember that when we were practicing in this document, there's a lot of information that we still need to practice, right? Here we have some of the mistakes, and those are the details, those are the elements that I have to correct. And if you again pay attention to the elements, Gina, there's always been something to work on. So it's very important to practice those details, even though we know and we understand, right, the basics of this. As we are in these courses, we need to cover that first and then practicing. But that's it. I'm finishing the class here. I hope you can watch the class later on. And again, we're going to see the class is being like this. I'm just giving the class. So I believe that I'm going to give the next class the next day, that will be Friday. All right, Friday starting 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. I'll be here giving the class live. Again, it's very important that you're here for that purpose. But well, try to, all right, catch up with this information. And it's important, once again, to be sure that everything can be applied to more complex examples and ideas. But that's it once again. I'm stopping this, all right, and I'll see you in the next class.